Have you ever stopped to think if humanity is truly ready to take the next step in its spiritual evolution? Will we all remain on Earth in its new phase, or will some spirits need to be taken far away, to distant places, like Chiron, to learn in a different way what they still resist understanding? This is a question that stirs our imagination, but also touches our hearts directly, because it speaks to the destiny of the soul, the choices we make every day, and the direction our spiritual life is taking. What you're about to discover now may surprise you, because we're not talking about just a prophecy or an isolated message, but a profound warning conveyed by Emmanuel, the spirit who so often guided Chico Xavier, and who continues to be a reference of wisdom for millions of people when Emmanuel speaks of exile and Chiron. He is not describing a punishment or a cruel sentence, but a natural process of the law of evolution. Imagine Earth as a school in transformation, ceasing to be an environment of tests and expiations to become a world of regeneration. Just like in any school, when students refuse to learn, respect the rules, or follow the class's progress, they end up being transferred to another class, suited to their level of understanding. Exile, then, is not a punishment, but a way to continue learning in a more compatible environment. Stay with me until the end, because you will understand how this teaching speaks not only of the distant future, but of the present of the life you are building right now. The name Chiron, which may seem strange to some, carries powerful symbolism. More than a physical place, represents the idea of a temporary refuge for spirits who have not yet managed to align themselves with the vibrations of love, fraternity, and compassion that Earth is beginning to demand. Emmanuel warns us that each soul will be evaluated not by religious labels or appearances, but by the quality of their actions, thoughts, and feelings. Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever felt that? At times, life calls you to change your attitude, but you resist, persisting in the same mistakes, as if unable to break old habits. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about. The urgency to embrace the moral transformation already underway on the planet. This spiritual message presents us with a choice. It's not about fear or threats, but about awareness. With every act of intolerance, selfishness, or pride, we move away from Earth's new vibration. On the other hand, every act of kindness, every effort to forgive, every sincere attempt to improve brings us closer to this bright future. Emmanuel makes it clear that no one will be forcibly removed. It is we who decide, with our own actions, whether we will remain here or whether we will need to seek another home to continue our journey. Think about it. Are we ready for this transition? Or do we still carry so much weight that we cannot harmonize with this new phase of humanity? The most fascinating thing is realizing how this theme, which might seem distant or even fanciful, actually speaks to something very close, everyday, and intimate. After all, Exile and Chiron isn't just about changing planets, but about changing consciousness. And deep down, we all know when we're sabotaging ourselves, and we're foregoing the opportunity to grow, to love more, to forgive, to serve. Emmanuel doesn't give us a ready-made script, but an urgent call to look within ourselves and see if we're preparing to live in this renewed world that's already beginning to emerge. And it is precisely at this point that reflection deepens. Because if there is the possibility of being exiled, there is also the opportunity to remain here and reap the fruits of this new spiritual era. But after all, what does this exile really mean? And how can we identify the signs of those at risk? Have you ever stopped to consider whether we are living through one of the most decisive moments in human history? What if what many call simple social changes, political crises, or climate change are actually a clear sign that the Earth is undergoing a major spiritual transition? Emmanuel, the spirit who for years brought profound messages through the mediumship of Chico Xavier, described this time as a phase in which each soul is called to choose between remaining trapped in old practices of selfishness and pride or awakening to higher values, such as compassion, fraternity, and love for others. What you're about to discover now may surprise you, because it's not just a religious reflection, but an invitation to see the world through different eyes. When we look around, it's impossible to ignore the countless signs that this transition has already begun. Wars and conflicts still ravage entire nations. Social inequalities seem to be deepening, and violence is gaining ground in many places. Have you ever experienced this? Have you ever felt like we're living on a planet where chaos seems to be taking over, yet at the same time, small gestures of kindness shine like sparks of light amidst the darkness? For Emmanuel teaches us that it is precisely in this contrast that humanity reveals its present state. The world of regeneration doesn't arrive magically, but is born from the collective and individual effort to transform pain into learning and suffering into opportunities for growth. It's as if Earth were a vast school, so now we're in a period of evaluation. Every choice matters, every attitude counts. It's no coincidence that we see so much polarization, so many power struggles, and so much difficulty in building dialogue. These challenges don't arise to bring us down, but to test our ability to respond with spiritual maturity. Stay with me until the end, because understanding this can completely change the way you view the trials of your life and of humanity. And while selfishness and pride still reign strongly, on the other, we see growing solidarity movements. People dedicating their time and energy to helping strangers, communities uniting for the common good, and even simple gestures. Like someone extending a hand at the right time, making all the difference. Emmanuel explains that these acts of kindness are not just isolated acts of kindness, but signs that many are already tuning in to the vibration of regeneration. The future of the earth is not written definitively. It is being built now in the present. It's through our choices. Perhaps you've asked yourself, why do so many crises occur simultaneously? Why does it seem like humanity is experiencing such a turbulent period? The answer, according to Emmanuel, lies precisely in this turning point. Before a new phase can fully take hold, it's natural for old structures to crumble. What no longer serves needs to be exposed, questioned, and transformed. It's painful, yes, but also necessary. Just as a student needs to revisit their mistakes to advance to the next grade, humanity needs to confront its own ghosts to reach a new level of consciousness. This moment is also deeply individual. There's no point in expecting only governments, religious leaders, or institutions to do the work for us. Regeneration begins within each person, in the way we treat others, in our care for nature. In the effort to overcome our own shadows, Emmanuel invites us to look within and ask ourselves, are we truly ready to live in a world of regeneration? Or do we still insist on carrying within us the vices of pride, intolerance, and indifference? What's clear is that Earth is no longer the same. Every piece of news, every event, every social and spiritual movement points to this transition. And if humanity is in this process of trials and choices, the big question is, how can we know if we're on the right path, or if we're still stuck in old practices that keep us from evolving? Have you ever wondered if amid this great transformation the world is experiencing, you're truly ready to remain on the renewed earth? Or are you at risk of being one of those spirits destined for so-called exile, as Emmanuel warned in his messages? This is a soul-stirring question, because it doesn't speak of superficial beliefs or outward appearances, but of intimate choices that reveal who we truly are. Is it me? Is it you? What you're about to discover now may surprise you, because the answer lies not in dogma or labels, but in the way we lead our lives every day. Emmanuel explains to us clearly and profoundly that the risk of exile lies not in belonging to a particular religion or not. God is not concerned with spiritual labels, but with attitudes. And this is where reflection becomes challenging. How often do we pride ourselves on being right while cultivating intolerance? How often do we repeat words of faith, but harbor resentment within ourselves? Have you ever experienced this? The truth is that what truly weighs on the spiritual scale are the feelings we choose to harbor. Pride, hatred, selfishness, indifference, ... or compassion, forgiveness, solidarity, and love. It is precisely at this point that Emmanuel's message becomes so timely. We live in an age of great technological advances and instant information, but also of a profound crisis of values. Empathy has never been so widely discussed, but at the same time, it has never been so common to see people attacking each other on social media. judging without understanding and spreading intolerance as if it were natural. And Emmanuel reminds us, these attitudes distance us from the vibration of the new earth, because regeneration is not compatible with hardened hearts. On the other hand, even those who bear flaws and limitations, but sincerely seek to do good, are already in tune with evolution. Stay with me until the end, because understanding this distinction can open your eyes to the importance of the moment we're living in. It's not about perfection, but about intention and effort. The spirit that makes mistakes, but acknowledges them and strives to improve, is already on the right path. Those who risk exile are those who insist on remaining trapped in hatred, pride, and a lack of compassion, refusing to learn from life's trials. Imagine someone who has every opportunity to transform, but chooses to repeat the same patterns of violence and indifference. Emmanuel warns us that these spirits do not follow the vibration of regeneration, and therefore, when Earth advances to a new stage, they will need to continue learning elsewhere under harsher conditions, not as punishment, but as an opportunity for evolution. This is the law of love and justice that governs the universe. Each person reaps exactly what they sow, and here comes an essential point. No one is condemned in advance. At every moment we have the chance to change course, to abandon the weight of the past, and to choose higher paths. Spirituality doesn't demand unattainable holiness from us, but it does expect us to have the courage to take sincere steps toward good. When you practice an act of kindness, when you decide to forgive instead of holding a grudge, when you reach out to those in need, you are already connecting with the earth and regeneration. But then, how can we tell if we're truly prepared to remain in this new world? And what signs reveal that someone is at risk of exile? These are questions that stir our conscience and invite us to look within, honestly, without masks. Because, ultimately, the decision to stay or leave isn't external, but within each of us. Have you ever stopped to consider whether you're truly prepared to live on Earth in its new phase of regeneration? What if the life you lead today were actually a grand test to determine whether you'll stay on this planet or whether you'll need to seek another place like Chiron to continue learning? This question may sound uncomfortable, but it's precisely this discomfort that pushes us to reflect on how we're conducting our spiritual journey. What you'll discover now may surprise you, because the truth is that no one is doomed in advance. We all have the chance to change, grow, and evolve. But that decision is solely up to each of us, Emmanuel. The spirit who so often delivered profound messages through Chico Xavier shows us that exile in Chiron should not be seen as punishment, but rather as a powerful warning. It's as if it were a reminder that the time for indifference is over, and that spiritual transformation is urgent. Stay with me until the end, because we'll discuss simple yet extremely effective ways to strengthen the soul and vibrate in tune with the new Earth. The interesting thing is to realize that these practices don't require anything supernatural or beyond our reach. They are all around us, in our daily lives, just waiting for us to decide to put them into action. Have you ever been there? Have you ever felt that inner urge to change, to forgive someone, to do something charitable, but ended up putting it off until later? Well, these small delays are precisely the signs that we often know what we need to do, but resist taking the step. And Emmanuel warns us, the difference between staying here and needing a new spiritual school lies in these seemingly simple choices, which reflect our willingness to align with higher values: charity, forgiveness, spiritual study. Self-knowledge, words so familiar, yet they carry a transformative power capable of altering not only our individual destiny, but also the course of humanity. Imagine a society where every person strives to practice acts of kindness, control pride, and cultivate compassion. This is what characterizes a regenerating Earth, a planet where suffering still exists, but is no longer the primary driver of life. Pain ceases to be punishment and becomes a learning experience. The struggle ceases to be against others and becomes one against our own shadows. Emmanuel reminds us that when we consciously choose to improve, even if only gradually, we are already contributing to this new vibration that is taking hold. Of course, it's not always easy. Forgiveness, for example, is perhaps one of the most difficult tasks anyone can undertake, because it requires relinquishing the ego and letting go of the weight of resentment. But that's precisely why it's so liberating. Charity isn't limited to donating material goods. It's expressed in the time we offer, in attentive listening, in a sincere embrace. Spiritual study broadens our perspective on life, connects us with universal laws that transcend matter, and self-knowledge helps us recognize our flaws and transform them into steps toward growth. Exile and Chiron, in this context, is a metaphor Emmanuel uses to remind us that evolution doesn't wait. The earth is changing, and it's up to each of us to decide whether we'll follow this movement or be invited to learn in another environment. But it's important to emphasize, there's no fatalism in this. Every act of love, every step toward goodness, every sincere effort already puts us on the path to regeneration. And it is exactly at this point that the big question arises. If everyone has the chance to evolve, how can we, in practice, begin this transformation in the here and now, without waiting for time to push us? And perhaps it's precisely at this point that reflection becomes more personal. Each of us carries a unique story, marked by choices, pain, learning, and small victories. And it's in this intimate space that true transformation happens. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what has touched you most so far. Sharing your experience, your opinion, or even a question can help others who are going through the same process and often need to read exactly what you have to say. This dialogue isn't just about listening to Emmanuel's message, but about creating a living chain of exchange and learning among us all. And since we're building this path of reflection together, don't forget to like the video. It may seem like a small gesture, but each like shows the relevance of this message and opens the way for YouTube to bring this content to more people who, like you, are seeking to better understand the meaning of life and the direction of humanity. It's a detail that makes a huge difference in our mission to spread these words of hope and spiritual awakening. And if you feel this, conversation is important, that you want to continue delving into deep topics about spirituality, psychograph messages, and soul-touching reflections, take advantage and subscribe to the channel. This way, you'll ensure you'll keep up with each new video and, at the same time, strengthen this community that grows every day. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content, creating a space where we can all learn, question, and evolve together. Because ultimately, it's not just about passively watching a video, but about being part of a current of light and awareness that spreads every time someone interacts, comments, shares, or simply leaves a gesture of support. That's the beauty of being connected. Your every action here reverberates far beyond the screen, and it is precisely in this spirit of unity and collective learning that we move forward, deepening our reflection on how to take the first practical steps to remain in tune with the regenerating earth. Have you ever considered the possibility that the universe, with all its grandeur and mystery, might right now be inviting us to make a profound decision about the course of our existence? This idea may seem distant, but when we delve into the messages of Emmanuel, the spirit who guided Chico Xavier in so many works and reflections, we realize we are facing something much more intimate and urgent. He speaks of the so-called exile in Chiron, and at first glance this might sound like a curious prophecy or even a complicated metaphor. But in truth, it is a clear warning. Humanity is experiencing a turning point, and each individual must choose whether to accompany this spiritual transformation or be left behind. The term exile in Chiron should not be interpreted as a cold sentence, but as a symbol. Imagine a school where some students advance because they strive to learn, while others, due to lack of dedication or interest, end up repeating a grade. Earth in this scenario is this collective school. The planet is preparing for a leap, to cease being a place marked by constant trials and expiations and become a world of regeneration, lighter, more balanced, and more just. But those who insist on remaining in pride, violence, intolerance, and selfishness cannot vibrate at the same frequency as this new reality. These spirits then need to be led elsewhere. Emmanuel uses the image of Chiron to explain this process. Now, Want to delve even deeper into this subject because the impact of this revelation is enormous. When we speak of exile, we're not just talking about a change of spiritual address, but a metaphor for choices. What truly defines who stays or who leaves is not a religion, a belief, or a ritual, but the mindset, the daily decisions, the intentions we silently nurture. Emmanuel makes it clear that the hidden truth of this process lies in something very simple. It's not enough to talk about love. We must live it. There's no point proclaiming faith if behind the scenes we harbor resentment, judgment, and indifference. This reflection is even more provocative when we look at our current times. We've never had so much access to information. We've never talked so much about spirituality, energy, and consciousness. And at the same time, we've never been so tested in our ability to apply these values in practice. It's in traffic, when someone cuts us off and we feel anger rising. It's in the family, when an old hurt seems greater than the will to forgive. It's at work, when competition stifles cooperation. It's in these details that the true testing ground of spiritual evolution is revealed. Have you ever experienced this? Have you realized that life presents us daily with seemingly small choices that ultimately shape our destiny? Emmanuel reminds us that exile to Chiron is not an arbitrary punishment, but a natural consequence. Just as nature eliminates what doesn't follow its rhythm, divine law directs each spirit to an environment compatible with its vibration. This means there is no injustice. Each person goes exactly to the place where they can continue learning, according to what they cultivate within themselves. It's hard to imagine being removed from Earth, but at the same time, it's a reminder that we now have the opportunity to do things differently. Transformation is possible for everyone, but it requires courage to rethink attitudes and a willingness to change. The Chiron metaphor is also an invitation to see beyond the surface. We're not talking about a distant planet in the astronomical sense alone, but about a state of consciousness. In this symbolism, Chiron represents the inner space we inhabit when we refuse to evolve. It's like living isolated on an island of pride, even surrounded by opportunities to love. On the other hand, remaining on Earth in regeneration means being willing to endure the discomfort of change, letting go of old hurts, and learning to live with more compassion. This call confronts us with our own responsibility. There's no point waiting for someone to save us, or for a miracle to solve everything. The journey is individual, even if the fruits are collective. Every act of kindness, every effort to control, pride, every attempt to put ourselves in someone else's shoes weighs in favor of our continued existence on this changing planet. Emmanuel invites us to realize that spiritual evolution is not a vague promise for the future, but a daily effort that manifests itself in concrete actions. And here lies one of the most powerful revelations. It doesn't matter how many mistakes we've made, how many times we've fallen, or how many opportunities we've missed. What matters is what we do from now on. Divine law is not meant to imprison, but to liberate. If we are willing to change, there will always be a chance to start over. This is the true meaning of Emmanuel's message: hope combined with responsibility. By understanding exile and Chiron from this perspective, we realize that it is not a prophecy of terror, but a mirror that shows us what we need to transform within ourselves. The symbol shakes us, forces us to look within and ask, am I ready to accompany Earth in this new stage, or do I still carry so much weight that I cannot walk lightly? This question resonates, and there is no escaping it. And perhaps that's precisely why this message remains so relevant. The world is changing before our eyes. Global crises, scientific advances, social transformations, all are reflections of the same process. And behind these events, there's always a silent invitation to grow in consciousness. Because, ultimately, the big decision isn't outside, but within us. Comment below. This makes sense to me. If this reflection touched you in any way, now I want to go even deeper into this subject. If we look closely at the signs of our times, we will see that Emmanuel's message is not limited to a distant warning, but echoes in the daily events that surround us. He describes the Earth as a world in transition, a place that no longer entirely belongs to the pains of the past, but that has not yet fully achieved the serenity of regeneration. It is as if we are at a crossroads, simultaneously experiencing the afterglow of old patterns and the first rays of a new mentality. This process brings with it both painful evidence and extraordinary opportunities. On the one hand, we still witness the impact of human selfishness reflected in wars, social conflicts, and glaring inequalities. One only has to watch the news to realize how much pride and the pursuit of power continue to guide many collective decisions. People who close themselves off to their own pain and interests end up fueling a cycle of competition, distrust, and violence. But at the same time, we cannot ignore the silent revelations that emerge in small gestures of solidarity, in cooperative initiatives, and the courage of those who, even amidst chaos, choose to help others. It is in this contrast that the earth reveals its condition as a world in regeneration. It's demanding that each of us define where we wish to go. This is the central point of the message. We are not merely spectators of change, but protagonists. Every daily choice, however simple it may seem, acts as a silent vote on the kind of future we want to build. Emmanuel makes it clear that regeneration is not a state that suddenly sets in, but a process that is achieved, soul by soul, decision by decision. What we see today, from global crises to advances in science and spirituality, are reflections of this great movement. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because understanding this transition helps us see that nothing we experience is by chance. Collective suffering is not an arbitrary punishment, but a mirror that reveals our deepest flaws and offers us the chance to overcome them. It's as if life is constantly asking us, will you remain trapped in resentment, pride, and fear, or will you choose the path of trust, compassion, and courage? This is humanity's greatest test, not just surviving trials, but drawing from them a transformative power. If we consider our own journey, it's easy to see how these challenges present themselves. A family disagreement can be the perfect stage for practicing forgiveness. An unjust situation can invite us to act with dignity without returning hate for hate. Even financial hardship, which so often seems cruel, can serve as lessons in developing resilience, creativity, and humility. Emmanuel shows us that, in truth, the entire earth has become a school of conscious choices, where each reaction shapes a soul's destiny. And it's curious to note how the hidden truth of this process is already visible in many societal transformations. Never before has there been so much talk about empathy, mental health, spirituality, and collective responsibility. While we still experience extreme intolerance, we also see people opening up space for dialogue, communities coming together to support the most vulnerable, individuals seeking self-knowledge rather than repeating patterns of pain. This duality is not a mistake, but proof that we are on the threshold between two worlds, one that insists on remaining in the past, and the other that already points to a new consciousness. The consequences, however, are inevitable. Emmanuel doesn't sugarcoat his message. Those who insist on clinging to selfishness and pride will find no place on the regenerated earth. This doesn't mean eternal damnation, but a kind of redirection. Just like a child who has to repeat a year in school because they didn't dedicate themselves enough, these spirits will be led to experiences compatible with their choices. On the other hand, those who, despite their failures and shortcomings, demonstrate a sincere effort to transform themselves, remain here, helping to consolidate this new cycle. This vision may seem harsh, but it also brings a breath of hope, because it shows us that we are not prisoners of the past. The doors of regeneration are open to all who wish to walk through them, and the key is in our hands. Attachment to pride and selfishness may seem comfortable for a time, but sooner or later it reveals its face of emptiness and loneliness. Choosing the highest values, compassion, honesty, fraternity may require sacrifice and effort, but it opens space for a joy that is independent of external circumstances. Perhaps this is why Emmanuel insists on reminding us of the urgency of the moment. We're not talking about something that will happen centuries from now, but about a transformation that has already begun. Just look at the conflicts that erupt in different regions of the planet, while at the same time we witness waves of solidarity mobilizing thousands of people. It's as if the entire Earth were a vast stage where the forces of the old and the new compete for space. And it's up to each of us to decide which role we will play in this play. The truth is, there's no neutrality in this process. Sitting on the fence is, in itself, a choice. And sooner or later, life demands a stance. This doesn't mean aligning ourselves with a political banner or a religious label, but rather adopting an inner stance. It means looking within and answering honestly. What values guide my decisions? What am I cultivating behind the scenes of my mind and heart? Because this is precisely what determines whether we will walk alongside the earth or whether we will need to be led onto other paths of learning. This is the beauty and, at the same time, the responsibility of this historic moment. It has never been so clear that we are at a crossroads, and that every action has an impact not only on our lives, but on the collective destiny of humanity. Emmanuel calls us to awaken to this awareness because, in the end, regeneration is not a prize handed out from the outside, but an intimate achievement that begins within each of us. Write down. I'm on this journey too. If this message resonated with you in any way, now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Could it be me? Could it be you? Perhaps these questions have crossed your mind at some point, even if only subtly, as you reflect on the course of your life. The choices you make every day and the impact they have on your spiritual evolution. Emmanuel and other spiritual mentors warn us that the risk of so-called exile in Chiron is not linked to dogma, rituals, or religious affiliations. He doesn't look at symbols or titles. He observes the essence of who we are, the set of our attitudes, thoughts, and feelings that day after day build our vibration and determine our attunement with the regenerating Earth. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding who is truly at risk of exile is more complex than it seems at first glance. It's not about external punishments or retribution, but the natural consequence of choices made in silence. Every act of pride, every gesture of hatred, every moment when intolerance overcomes empathy weighs heavily. It's as if the spirit carries with it invisible baggage, made up of all the times it could have chosen good, but chose to close itself off to love, compassion, and justice. And when this baggage becomes too heavy, the process of exile symbolized by Chiron serves as a redirection. An opportunity for the soul to continue learning in an environment compatible with its vibration. What Emmanuel reveals is that exile is not an eternal sentence. There is no immutable final destination, but rather a consequence of conscious choices. The regenerating Earth does not tolerate the maintenance of harmful patterns, because it is rising to a new level of morality and understanding. Those who cling to pride, which believes they are above others, or to hatred, which fuels division and conflict, risk being driven away. But curiously, those who, despite their flaws, seek the good, who try to act with compassion and responsibility, remain connected to this new vibration. The difference lies not in perfection, but in the intention and willingness to evolve. It's fascinating to see how this warning touches practical areas of our daily lives. Have you ever been in situations where you could have chosen empathy, but opted for criticism or indifference? Have you ever found yourself in tense moments where anger spoke louder than understanding? Each of these decisions has a direct impact on our spiritual journey. Emmanuel invites us to look within and recognize these opportunities for change, even when they aren't easy. Because true transformation doesn't happen just in grand gestures, but in the details of everyday life, in the words we choose, the patience we exercise, the ability to forgive, and the care we show others. The mindset we cultivate is, therefore, fundamental. How we react to adversity, how we deal with conflict, how we maintain or abandon prejudices and judgments, all of this builds the energetic frequency that determines whether we are aligned with the regenerating Earth or if we move away from it. It is an invitation to take full responsibility for our lives without outsourcing growth to institutions or spiritual leaders. Evolution is urgent and individual, and this truth, which may seem harsh at first glance, carries with it a liberating force. No one is condemned, but everyone needs to act. Exile and Chiron, therefore, ceases to be merely a distant concept and becomes a living metaphor for us to reflect on our choices. It reminds us that life presents continuous tests and that the consequences are not punitive, but educational. Those who remain trapped in hatred or intolerance are not rejected by God. They simply find different paths to continue their learning under conditions compatible with their vibration. Those who choose good, however imperfectly, remain in tune with the planet's regeneration movement, contributing to the construction of a more balanced and conscious reality. It's striking to note how this perspective invites us to an honest and profound observation of our own lives. Each person carries their own map of decisions and learning, and awareness of this map is what makes the difference. Emmanuel shows us that it's possible to change the course of our own journey, that every decision made with the sincere intention of evolving impacts not only our lives, but also the community. Understanding this principle awakens a sense of urgency, but also of hope. Ultimately, this message brings us to an essential point. We are not alone in this process. But responsibility for individual growth is inevitable. The Earth in transition demands effort, reflection, and courage. Pride, intolerance, and hatred can distance us. But love, compassion, and the pursuit of good are key to staying connected to the new vibration. Every gesture counts. Every choice is relevant. An awareness of this impact transforms the journey into something meaningful, where we learn the importance of aligning thoughts, feelings, and actions. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. If this reflection awakens something in you, now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because understanding how to prepare to remain and evolve on the regenerating Earth it's essential to transforming the sense of urgency into concrete action. Emmanuel reminds us that no one is doomed, that everyone has opportunities for transformation. And this message is simultaneously liberating and challenging. The key lies not in grand spectacular gestures, but in simple, daily practices that strengthen the soul and align us with the vibration of the regenerating planet. Each choice, however subtle, acts as an invisible thread connecting our actions to the great web of collective evolution. Imagine, for a moment, that your life is like a vast garden. If we allow pride, intolerance, and hatred to grow, they suffocate the seeds of goodness and compassion, and the soil becomes barren for spiritual life. But when we cultivate practices like charity, not just in the material sense, but also in the care, attention, and time dedicated to others, we begin to transform this inner soil. Forgiveness acts like gentle rain, washing away resentments and purifying the heart, allowing new opportunities to blossom. Spiritual study is the light that illuminates the mind, revealing the hidden depths of life and revealing truths we don't always perceive. And self-knowledge, perhaps the most challenging of all, makes us look within, recognizing our limitations, but also our potential. It's creating fertile ground for true transformation. It's important to understand that these practices don't require perfection. Spiritual evolution doesn't require us to be flawless, but rather to be sincere. Every conscious effort, every act of love, even amid failures, vibrates at the same frequency as the new Earth and keeps us connected to it. Emmanuel emphasizes that the exile in Chiron is a powerful metaphor precisely to remind us of the urgency of this transformation. It's not about fear or punishment, but about understanding. Spiritual evolution is urgent and individual. Every step we take toward goodness impacts not only ourselves, but the entire network of consciousness that surrounds us. If we think about the behind-the-scenes aspects of life, we realize that it's often the details that most reveal our alignment with this new phase of humanity. A kind word spoken at the right time, an act of kindness without recognition, a decision to forego pride in favor of empathy. These small choices accumulate positive energy, transforming not only our destiny, but also the impact we have on the world around us. It's as if each gesture were a drop of water that, combined with others, helps fill the river of regeneration. The great revelation here is that preparation to endure does not depend on external conditions, social status, titles, or rituals. It depends on us, on the way we lead our lives, the sincerity with which we face our mistakes, and the courage with which we choose to evolve. The transformation Emmanuel proposes is not just an abstract ideal, but a daily exercise that touches all areas of existence: mental, emotional, spiritual, and even physical. Every moment of conscious attention, every effort to practice kindness, every step toward self-knowledge builds a bridge that keeps us in tune with the regenerating planet. And even though it may seem challenging, this is also the most hopeful part of the message. The universe doesn't demand perfection. It invites intention, effort, and persistence. The possibility of evolution is open to everyone, without exception. Even those who find themselves in difficult situations, who carry deep hurts or past mistakes, can initiate significant change through small gestures. The awareness that every action has an impact and that every daily choice shapes our connection with the planet creates a powerful motivation not to postpone spiritual growth. By internalizing this perspective, we begin to realize that life is a continuous series of decisions, and that each decision is an opportunity to strengthen the soul. Attitudes that promote solidarity, humility, and empathy not only bring us closer to the vibration of the new earth, but also teach us to deal with challenges in a more relaxed, conscious, and resilient way. With each step, we realize that the spiritual journey is not about reaching an endpoint, but about walking with intention and clarity, transforming everyday life into a space of constant learning and evolution. The exile in Chiron, when understood as a metaphor, ceases to be something fearful and becomes an invitation to reflection. It reminds us that time is precious, that our choices have consequences, and that evolution cannot be postponed. But at the same time, it offers hope, because it shows us that there is always an opportunity to reverse old patterns, cultivate new attitudes, and align with a higher frequency. It is a message of responsibility and love, showing that the universe works in tune with those who desire to grow, even slowly, and that the impact of our actions reverberates far beyond what we can perceive. Every moment of mindfulness, every sincere effort to forgive, every gesture of charity or solidarity, every instant dedicated to self-knowledge is a brick placed in the construction of a life that remains in harmony with the Earth's regeneration. And it is in this daily effort, in this care for our own choices, that we find the true security to persevere and evolve. Because in the end, the essence of what Emmanuel conveys to us is that there is no immutable destiny. There is action. There is awareness. There is the capacity to transform now our own lives, and, consequently, the world around us. Comment below. This makes sense to me if this reflection awakened something in you. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. And if you've made it this far, it means this reflection truly resonated with you, that these words touched you in some way. And that's precisely why I invite you to subscribe to the channel, to continue receiving content that conveys these profound messages, which help you look within and better understand your own journey with clarity and sincerity. Here, each video is designed to provide you with tools for self-awareness, helping you realize the impact of your choices and the importance of evolving each day. If this content touched you, leave a comment saying, "I'm with you until the end." It'll be incredible to see how many people reached this point and shared this reflective experience, creating a real connection between all of us who are on this quest for understanding and growth. And if you'd like, leave a like. It's a simple gesture, but it shows that we're all on this journey together, that you value this exchange of ideas, and that you want more people to have access to reflections like this. And look, it doesn't stop there. There's a video right here that complements this topic. It's providing more insights on how to apply these messages in practical life and further strengthen your connection with spiritual evolution. Click and stay with me there, because the path of consciousness is continuous, and each stage brings new revelations that help you walk with greater clarity and intention.